Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about something pretty amazing, a school. But not just any school. This is a story about a 19th century idea that wasn't about making better students, but about literally rebuilding a nation from the inside out.
So, how on earth could a school have that kind of impact? Well, to get it, we've got to go back in time, back to the early 1800s, to a country that was, to put it mildly, on the brink of complete collapse.
Right, so before we talk about the fix, you really need to grasp just how bad things were. We're talking about Denmark, and at this point in its history, it was in some serious trouble.
And the downfall was just unbelievably fast and brutal. In just 7 years, Denmark got completely hammered. First, you had the British Navy showing up bombing Copenhagen and just taking their entire fleet. Then, boom, the economy completely collapses. The state goes bankrupt. And the final nail in the coffin? Just a year later, they're forced to give up Norway to Sweden. So just imagine that. A nation defeated, broke, and just spiritually broken.
And this huge national crisis, it was reflected in the people themselves. Get this, a staggering 80% of the rural population couldn't even read or write. They were completely cut off from new ideas, from knowledge. And that spirit of innovation, that self-reliance you absolutely need to rebuild a country, yeah, that was pretty much gone.
So you might be thinking, okay, what about the schools? Couldn't they help? Well, that's the thing. Far from being part of the solution, the education system was actually a huge part of the problem. It wasn't designed to help people.
There was this one young student. His name was N.F.S. Grundtvig, and he was so fed up with it all that he actually gave it a name. He called it the Black School, and he said it was just this dull, lifeless process where it seemed like the only point was to memorize grammar for languages nobody even spoke anymore.
And this is where you see the huge disconnect, right? The Black School was all about rote memorization, passing exams, and getting a good job. But that's not what the Danish people needed. They needed enlightenment. They needed to feel that national spirit again, to connect with their own culture and their own lives. Instead, the school system was just this mechanical grind, completely separate from their reality.
But Grundtvig, he didn't just complain. All those bad experiences, plus some inspiring trips he took to England, got him thinking. He started to put together this radically different vision for what education could be.
And what he came up with, he called it a school for life. And you have to understand, this was absolutely revolutionary. The whole point wasn't to get a degree or a better job. The goal was human enlightenment. It was all about waking up the human spirit, through real conversations, through connecting with your own history, and through what he called the living word. You know, the power of songs and stories and actual dialogue, instead of just dusty old textbooks.
Now, this wasn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. In 1844, it actually happened. The very first Danish Folk High School opened its doors in a town called Rutting. And the way they did things was, well, it was completely out there for the time. I mean, just listen to this. There were no admission tests, no exams, no certificates or degrees at the end. Instead, the students and the teachers, they all lived together, kind of like a big community. And their focus was on their own history, their own culture, all discussed through open, free-flowing conversations. It was literally the complete opposite of that Black School we talked about.
And here's where it gets really incredible. This new type of school didn't just change the students who went there. Its impact started to ripple outwards, from the classroom to the countryside, and it began to change the entire nation.
It set off this amazing chain reaction. You see, the schools first enlightened the rural population. They gave people a sense of pride, community, and trust in each other. Then, those graduates, now feeling empowered, went out and started one of the most successful cooperative movements the world has ever seen. And these co-ops, they literally rebuilt rural Denmark from the ground up, completely transforming the nation's economy and its whole society.
Okay, so you might think this is just a cool history story, right? A thing of the past. But it's not. This 19th century idea is very, very much alive and kicking today.
Right now, there are over 70 of these unique residential schools still running all across Denmark. And they're not just for kids. They attract young people, adults, everybody. They're still a really important, distinct part of Danish life. And yeah, while they're still based on Grundtvig's original philosophy, enlightenment over exams, the schools themselves have definitely evolved. Today, they cover a huge range of interests. You got everything from arts and music to sports, even personal development. But at their heart, they're all still focused on that powerful core idea, a school for life.
Which kind of leaves us with a really big question for our own time, doesn't it? I mean, we live in a world that's obsessed with standardized tests, with job training, with things you can measure. So what can we learn from a school, from an idea, whose main goal was never any of that, but was simply to awaken the human spirit?